I'm Olivia.
I'm Laura, and this is Roughly Speaking, a podcast driven by honest, curious conversations about life with dogs.
Each episode, we explore one story or idea that helps us see our relationships with dogs a little differently.
It's not about perfect training or quick fixes. It's about the real, sometimes messy, always evolving nature of sharing life with dogs. Hello, guys. Well, this is our second episode. And as we promised, this is all going to be about discovering who Olivia is and how she got here. So I am very excited because even as I was preparing for this episode, I realized that I actually have a lot of questions for you. And even from our previous episode, I was like, this is interesting. So I am excited that I'm finally going to have a chance to ask questions.
This is really great because now I get to think about what questions to ask you for the next episode because we're going to be doing a little interview about Laura for the next one. So I'm glad you're going first because it gives me some ideas about what I would like to ask you in the next one.
I mean, I know I was a little nervous about this one, but I just let the juices flowing. And again, like I genuinely have a lot of questions of how you got here, because I was thinking that I feel like if we summarize, kind of like how we did on our last episode, that we said, like, if you see the big definition of our journeys, they're so similar, like we went from corporate work and climbing the ladder to training dogs to owning our businesses. But I feel like if we take it apart, our journeys have been so different, and we took very different paths to get where we are today. So I feel like that's what, it's such a great start to this podcast, just sharing that. And I think even for me, it's going to be super cool to hear another person wanting the same thing that I wanted and how you found your way to it. So I think like that's going to be the main message into all of this.
I'm also really glad it's you interviewing me and not somebody else because I think I would be super nervous if it was someone else.
You are with a friend and we're
Yeah.
good. I'm just missing my bubble teas. I realize I don't have my bubble teas.
I have water.
You're always so boring with your drinks other than bubble tea.
I like to stay hydrated, okay? If you know me, I love water. Anytime they offer me something, they're like, you want coffee, tea, pop? I'm like, no, water's good, thank you.
I know it took me a while to like get used to that, but now it's like, Olivia, I have water for you. What about that?
I'm like, is it cold?
Lots of eyes. But okay, well, I feel like the best way to get started is kind of like going back into the past, and just to give the audience and you also something to expect from this, I really kind of like chop this podcast into three pieces that I am curious about. And I feel like it's three different Olivias that I want to talk about, like talk with today. First, I want to know Olivia before getting into anything about dogs, before you got Darwin, like who was that Olivia? And then I feel like that is going to naturally transition into how you got Darwin, which I know that has been basically the starter into getting you into dog training. I feel like you have such a great experience. I was going to say average experience, but I sounds bad, but I feel like it's real that, you were just another human wanting to have a dog. And I feel like knowing what you did to acquire a dog and how that expectation went, I feel that's going to be cool. And then how that took you to training, and then how that took you to having your own business and having all the barks. So it's a big journey for you.
I know, what a wild ride. Just like thinking about it right now makes me like, holy smokes. So unconventional, I think, and not the typical way that I would say most dog trainers get into it or even pet professionals. But also sometimes, yeah, kind of similar to how other people get into it, but also not.
I know you have your own story. So yeah, take me back to Olivia before Darwin.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start. I'm going to start kind of like at the end of university because then it'll start to make sense. But I went to SFU and I got an English degree, kind of hoping to get into like publishing. And I wanted to be a writer really, really badly. I wanted to be like a fictional writer and write stories because I always had stories in my head. And there was just something about the medium of like prose and writing that really fascinated me, and like wanting to create my own world and tap into like fantasy fiction. So that was kind of my ultimate dream when I was in university. But I finished university, found myself in kind of a slump where I was like, ooh, I don't know what to do with this degree now. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to this if you've gone to like post-secondary or if you've gone to college and you're just like, what do I do with this degree that it doesn't lead you to a specific job. I feel like there are some degrees that like, this is the path you take, this is what you do. But for me, I took English and that could have been so many different paths for me. So I was really lost for probably about like 2 years, not knowing what to do. And as I was looking for jobs, I stumbled upon a job listing for a small marketing agency that specialized in doing branding and marketing for medical practices in the US. Super random.
I wasn't see that coming.
Super random, but I was like, oh, I kind of have some of these skills where they were like looking for like copywriting and blog writing because I had done some of that while I was finishing up university and kind of like leaving it. I had written blogs and articles and things. I'd written for like Vancouver's Awesome and Daily Hive as like a contributing writer. So I
Oh,
was
I'm
like,
gonna look for
yeah,
your blogs.
please don't. Please do not dig up any of that old stuff. But they might actually be gone out into the interwebs. But I was like, oh, I have some experience with like writing, blog writing, stuff like that. So maybe I'll just apply for this job. I ended up getting that job. I was there for about a year before I became super burnt out because they just ended up piling everything on me. So I was managing like multiple medical practices in terms of like their marketing content and creating the content for them and publishing the content and coordinating with the owners and the founders of each medical practice and just doing the whole strategy for them. And I was managing, I think at one point, like 20 different practices.
What the heck?
It was a lot. And at the same time, I was also doing trade shows. So I was going down into the States. Like I would go to Miami, I would go to New York. I went to like LA and I would go to these medical conventions where we would market our services to doctors and practitioners, stem cell experts, all sorts of stuff. But after a year, that got really exhausting and I was super burnt out and I couldn't do it anymore. And then I started looking for a new job, which was with a cosmetic brand called Suva Beauty. And it was like an indie brand based out of Surrey. And from there, I kind of started out like as an admin marketing person and really just grew up in the company over the 10 years that I was there and eventually became their brand manager. And because it was a small company, I pretty much did everything. So anything from like social media content. I started doing some like designing for product packaging, eventually got into product development. So developing like cosmetic products, brushes, eyeshadow palettes, eyeliners, the whole thing. And then I got into like sourcing. So getting like working with the manufacturers and going from like end to end in terms of how a product is developed. Also did a lot of trade shows. So again, went to the States a lot, even got to go to Finland and all these cool places that I would have never thought I would have been able to do if it weren't for that job. I learned so much in there in that job, like an extreme amount in terms of just like business, marketing, branding, and so many good life lessons too. But the company had to close down back in, God, what was it now? 2000, what are we in now? We're in 2025.
23 maybe?
23. So the end of 2023, the company was closing down and it was kind of out of my control. And I had to figure out, like, what do I do next? Do I continue on this path of looking for something in marketing, looking for something in branding? Do I just keep climbing this corporate ladder and have this like amazing stability in my life where I know what's coming in my bank account every single like 2 weeks or whatever, and knowing that I'm going to be secure, or do I do something that I am really passionate about? Um, and then that kind of leads me into the next part of my life, which was going into dog training. But I'll stop it there. Let me know if you have any questions.
I mean, this was just, I just want to let the people know because, we mentioned that we're friends, but we hadn't had a chance to talk about this. I had no idea. I know that you mentioned that you studied English, but I didn't know that, you wanted to be a writer and that you did all the medical stuff. And all of the trade shows now make so much sense. How excited you got when you did your market here that you were just like, yes. So I think it's like everything starts making sense to me of like, oh, even like how you connected with Ricky. I don't know, like when you said that you studied English and you wanted to write novels, it's like, I feel like that's something that Ricky would be into. So I can see even that.
Totally. I know. I wouldn't say I'm a naturally outgoing person or like an extrovert, but after doing all those trade shows from like my previous jobs, I'm like, I really love being like around people and like seeing people face to face, because so much of business is like you being in front of a computer and like
Totally.
writing emails and doing all the behind the scenes stuff. And it's very few times you actually get to be with people and like conversing with them and like talking to them about the things that like interest you or things that they're interested in. So I really enjoy that aspect of, being in front of people and talking to people in person.
No, and then I feel like it's a muscle memory that you build. And because I feel like a lot of people see me and it's just like, oh, you're so outgoing. But I feel like it always takes energy from me. But found that whenever I did a little market myself, it was like, it's so cool to have feedback, like live feedback of a human being telling you what they think and hearing the words they use and like what they're interested in, the things that really
Mhm.
tick with them. So I feel like there's nothing like that real human connection that you get so much information from people. So yeah, I think like all of that makes sense, but I am excited to hear now because I feel like for us to start with training, we have to go back to that Olivia figuring things out, having stability with her like working for another business, and then deciding that, you know what, I'm gonna get a doggy.
Yeah, Darwin kind of came in the middle of all of that. So Darwin, she's my miniature American Shepherd. She's 4 years old now. And at the time that I was leaving that job at the cosmetic brand, Darwin was 2 years old. So she was about 2 years old. And for us, me and my husband, we had been working on Darwin's reactivity since she was about 7 months old. And then jumping farther back, the reason why I wanted to get Darwin is because if you've watched our last episode, I've always been in love with dogs, and I hadn't had a dog in my life since I was about like 16 or 17. And it was always in my mind that I was going to get a dog in my adult life. Like I just knew it was going to happen and I was going to make it happen. But because of our living situation, we weren't allowed to have dogs in our apartment at the time. And because me and Ricky were just like really starting our lives together, that it just didn't fit right. And I wanted to make sure, like, I really wanted to make sure that when I got a dog, I would be prepared and do anything I needed to do to make sure that this dog had the best life possible. So I probably was like researching on and off for about 2 years to like make sure I got the right breed, make sure it was the right temperament for me, make sure it fit our lifestyle well because we were apartment dwellers. And just making sure that I was doing the right research so that it all worked out.
And it did.
It did for the most part. But again, like I said, Darwin became super reactive around 7 months, but there have always been signs, like when she was a puppy, of how that was going to play out because she was fearful of literally everything. I kid you not. I pulled out a dog ball, her collar, this bag that wasn't there the night before, like everything she was so freaked out by. And I just thought, oh, she's just a scared puppy. It's what puppies do. But that's not how puppies normally act. They should generally be pretty well socialized and okay with looking at new types of things and stuff like that, or even just meeting new people. And Darwin did not want to meet anybody new. She was totally petrified anytime someone came into our apartment, like our friends, when they first wanted to see her. So there were signs in the beginning. I just didn't know what they were because I wasn't super well versed in anything dog related, even though I had done as much research as I think I possibly could have before we got her. But yeah, so eventually we realized that was kind of culminating into her being like super reactive on leash to dogs and people and basically anything that moved in the wind, like a balloon or a plastic bag or a coat that was hanging on a fence because the kid left it there or whatever, right? It was just so much. And so we were really in the trenches of learning how to manage her reactivity. Within that time span, I think we were working with about like 2 different trainers. It took us a while to get to that point because we're pretty stubborn and we thought we could
I
fix
can
it
fix that.
yeah, exactly. We could fix it ourselves. And we're pretty smart. We're both like university educated people. We know how to do research. And I think we're just both very headstrong too. So we didn't really want to reach out to a professional until we really felt like it was plateauing and there wasn't any progress happening. So yeah, when I left my job at the cosmetic brand, we were really in the trenches of that. And then my husband actually is the one who really pushed for me to try something different because this was the perfect opportunity. I didn't have any ties anywhere. I didn't have a foundation to stand on in terms of like being tied to a company. He knew also that I'm the type of person to get really attached and loyal to people if I do fall into a company and start working for a company. And it's really hard for me to detach myself because I don't want to disappoint people. I don't want to let people down. So he was like, hey, why don't you try this dog stuff? Like, you're really into it. You really love it. And like, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And then you can go back to the marketing and branding thing. So it took a lot of pushing on his part because I'm very risk averse just in life. So I was like, yeah, but we're not gonna make money if I become a dog trainer.
And you know what?
Like
I'm going to stop you a little bit because that
yeah.
was one of the questions I had for you. Because I was like, because you mentioned that, this company was closing. So I had to look for a different job. And I was like, I feel 80% of people out there would have just looking to something within that. And even if you were going to start something, a lot of people would just start something with the things that they already know, which I know you're doing now, but I feel like it took a long journey to be back into that. So I was like, okay, but what was that you said, oh, you know what, I'm actually gonna get creative and try something completely new, which I feel it's not the most natural decision to make, and it requires a lot of balls to go into being poor and happy. So yeah, I was gonna ask exactly about that, like how did you choose to just try something completely new? But now I see that it's Ricky.
It's 100% Ricky. He is very like, go with the flow. Don't worry about things. Everything, we can always figure it out. And we do have savings. So it's not like, we're going to be desolate on the street and homeless. So thank God for my previous job that gave me a nice cushion. But I will say that I did have like a transition job in between the cosmetic brand and dog training. And I was working at a photography studio as their studio manager. So that I was expecting to be there a bit longer because I wasn't expecting the dog thing to take off as fast as it did. But I just really applied myself to the dog thing and I met you, which really sped things up as well. So that let me go farther into it and really just put a lot of my eggs in the dog training basket. But I did have that transition job because again, I am very risk averse. So I was like, I need to have some safety net just in case anything happens, and I'll still work on the dog thing on the side. But at the same time, I was shadowing and apprenticing under a local dog trainer here in New West, and I was doing that for over a year, maybe a year and a half
Oh,
before.
I'm gonna ask you another
Yeah.
question about that because that's the part that I was like, okay, it's so funny And I mean, we'll go into that on the next episode about me. But also, the reason why I started with dogs is also because my husband dumped the idea into me, and it was just like, huh, so these husbands of ours, like they're smart, they know what's up. But I feel like like the moment when I said like, okay, I'm gonna be a dog trainer, and you are just out there in the world not knowing anything. At least, I mean, you had work with some trainers just because you had your own dog. But I remember the feeling of just being kind of like in a little island, and it's just like, okay, like those little fishes at Nemo that at the end they
Hmm.
go into the ocean, but they're still in their baggie, and they're just like, now what? So it's just like, okay, I decided to be a trainer, but it's just like, okay, how do I do that now? So I really want to hear what was the process going on into your head, saying, okay, I want to be a trainer. What were those first steps that you took? Did you reach out to the trainers you were working with, or how did you got into the apprenticeship? Like, what was your thought process of like, I'm gonna be a trainer. This is the first step I'm gonna take.
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't reach out to the dog trainers I was working with because I didn't love their approach. One trainer, she had a lot of like pads experience, so but I didn't feel like she had a lot of experience with behavior, and it felt
Mhm.
very basic, her training, which is fine. That's what a lot of people need, but it's not what I needed for my dog. The other trainer I worked with, her method, it was good, but I think it was just not something that I was interested in particularly. She did like a lot of leash handling skills. But for me, I was more interested in getting to the root cause of things because with Darwin, it just seemed so much more complicated than if you fix your leash handling, if you fix your mechanics, everything will turn out well. And I feel
Mhm.
like as much as we tried to do all of that, there was still a part that was like, there's something in her brain that's not working, and I don't know what it is. So then I really, and the trainer that I apprenticed with knows this, but I basically sent out a mass email to like 10 different trainers or something in the area and being like, "Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm interested in dog training, but I have no experience. Do you need help with doing whatever you need help doing?" And the trainer that I ended up working with was the only one that replied back to me.
Everyone was like, nah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, some people were also charging for, being an apprentice, or they had like apprenticeship
Mm.
programs that you had to pay for, and I was just not in a position where I could invest in that. So I ended up working with her through that, and she was running some puppy socialization classes. And she
Mhm.
said, "Hey, if you want, you can just come by, have a look, see if this is the right fit for you, if you want to help out." And I ended up doing that, and I thought it was super interesting because, first of all, puppies are freaking adorable. And I think there's just so much to learn about behavior when they're puppies as well, because they're just learning so much and they're testing different things, and there's so many different personalities that you get to see in one room at the same time without being it too chaotic, even though it was chaotic sometimes. So I started doing more of that, and then as time went on, I asked if I could shadow some of her sessions, like her private sessions, and she primarily focused on reactive cases or dogs who were fearful, nervous. So I did a lot of shadowing in that end because it also helped me with my own dog,
Mhm.
Darwin. And I just kept doing more and more of that. And eventually she ended up closing her business and I started
What's
working with
happening
you.
with all the businesses that you work? I am getting worried now.
Okay, okay. To be fair, it has nothing to do with me. And if anything, I think I made the businesses better before they closed.
She's like, what the hell, Olivia? What am I getting into?
I will say though that the one comment I have gotten, just to toot my own horn, from like everybody that I've worked for is, "Man, I wish I could make a clone of you so that we could have two Olivias." And you've even said that to me before.
I've said that several times, and I think that at least one time every week. It's just like, How can I manage to clone this human? Because it's just amazing. So I mean, I can attest that I'm sure people close their business on their own merits. But
Thank
I was just
you. It
like,
wasn't
what
my
the hell,
fault.
Olivia? We're gonna
I'm
break that curse
amazing.
with me. We're just gonna keep growing here.
Yeah, your business is gonna go on forever. It's gonna have legs for days, and it's gonna turn into this giant empire. But
Thank you.
yeah, so so yeah, she ended up closing her business, and then we connected kind of in the
Uh-huh.
midst of all that. And then I started working for you, which really kind of expedited my, you know, working relationship with dogs and understanding dogs firsthand. Because even though I was shadowing under the other trainer, I didn't have a lot of experience teaching myself. I learned so
Uh-huh.
much. I learned from her classes. I learned from other trainers' classes that she had come into her facility. I learned from her, but there wasn't a lot of me being the one to, have
Uh-huh.
my say in things. And when I met you, it really gave me the opportunity to really, work with these dogs one on one and be able to put everything I've learned, you know, into practice, which I think
Uh-huh.
is it's like one of the biggest things I've realized that you cannot learn from doing a class online or even just learning from your own dog is that you really learn so much about dog behavior by working with different types of dogs.
You have to get out there, like you have to work
Yeah,
with dogs. And I think like they are the best teachers. And like no one can tell you how to do one thing when like the dog is right there doing something like no one told you about and it's happening there.
totally. And like, yes, you can learn so much from a book and from a program and a course and all these things, but man, there's just some curveballs that you just don't expect, or you just don't even realize you would have to learn if you were not with the dogs day in and day out. So I'm really grateful to you for that and giving me that
Yay.
opportunity. So it's a
And
win-win.
I just want to say that that is the whole reason why I started Curious Newts, and it's so like reassuring to hear this from someone else because I feel like that was also a game changer for me. It's like you have to work with the dogs. Like there is no other way around it. You need to have the leash. You have to be in the world and making decisions and fucking it up and then trying again. And I feel like yeah, I mean, I'm just very happy that, the same way that it's serving me going out there and walking all these dogs with big feelings, it's so good to hear that it's also serving you in your own journey. And I think like that was my selling proposition when I was just like, work with me. It was just like, I created this so like trainers can learn. So like, come on in. And I'm happy that you ended up saying yes to me after saying no very kindly before.
Well, I think it's like the thing that really attracted me to like your business model and like you yourself is the fact that you were so open about me wanting to start my own business and you were so encouraging about it. And you were like, yeah, use this opportunity to learn, use this opportunity to grow yourself and learn from the dogs and take that forward with you. So I think what you've created and what you are putting out into the world is like so spectacular.
Oh, that feels so good. Like, this is not a Curious Nuts episode, but this is a little a little parenthesis in there. And I really appreciate that because I feel like that's something we always talk about. And I think like we're gonna keep talking about in this podcast. There is like an old place where I used to work, they were always so afraid of like, oh, are you gonna leave and you're gonna be my competition and like this and la 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 la. La. Like even when I like started something completely different, they were like, oh well, no, 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 we don't want to be associated. But I feel like in this industry, you have to expect people to follow this path. So I feel like I find that it's going to be smarter. We'll see in the future, but it's going to be smarter to like support each other and to build those little, at least a break for someone else, because I feel like that's how we evolve in this industry rather than just feeling like everyone's competing against us and we need to kind of like be aware of everyone because if there's no trust, I feel like there's no growth. So yeah, I'm glad that it's transferring into all of this.
And that's exactly it. I 100% agree. And that was because so many other trainers I had heard from previously was so like everyone was fearful that somebody was going to take something of theirs or that they were taking clients of theirs or they're starting a new program. So like, what do they do now? But with you, it was so refreshing to just hear you be like, "Nah, it's okay. Like, there's enough
We'll
room
figure
for
it out.
everybody. Yeah, we'll figure it out, and, like, you do this, and I'll do that, and it's all great."
I love it. But okay, so let's going back in here. So I guess that at this point we are closer because I feel like now it's gonna be like the transition into finally quitting. Because I feel like it's number one, I feel like it's such a smart decision, and that's something I hear from a lot of, like people I read books from, and I love learning from people who have done amazing things in the world. And something everyone says is that, for you to really follow your passion, you need to have a backup so you're not stressing about and you're not putting more pressure into your dream to become a dream because you need to live like from it, and having a side gig that is separate that allows you to have, time to go out there, do your job, get your money, and then focus on your craft separately without that pressure. I feel like that is a smart way to go about it, and the fact that you had this temporary job that was supposed to last longer, but it didn't. I feel like that was a great call from you. But then I feel like now living that one and really saying, I'm going to start Olive Bark and start your own business. Like I personally even thought, like, even though I'm like, we're saying that I was very open and like, yeah, start your own business. I never thought it was going to happen like so quickly. I remember that you were just like, you know what? I feel like it's time for me to focus. I was like, okay, maybe like a year. But then in like 2 months, it was just like Olive Bark. I was like, wow, that was fast.
That's so funny. I didn't even think about it that way. I guess, like, in your mind, you have your own timeline for things. And, like, I honestly did not expect it to happen that fast either. But I think because I was walking more for Curious Snoots and I was also juggling this other job, I just thought in my head, okay, this is starting to become a little bit unmanageable now, where I am also the person that I don't wanna half-ass things. Like, if I'm
Mhm.
gonna do something, I'm gonna do it, like, 120%. So I'm like, "Okay, now my time is being a little bit too divided, and I know if I just go full into the dog training thing, it's gonna be very slow for me for a little bit, just because I don't have anything set up for my business or anything." But I was starting to put little puzzle pieces in place for building the business. I had already started like my Instagram page, but I had it under a different name. Darwin barks a lot. But I was doing that for a little bit, just like creating fun content. And then I just transitioned it over into like Olivia Trains Dogs. So I didn't really have a business name at the time, but I was wanting to make the steps of becoming more of like a pet professional rather than just like a fun content creator. And so I know for you, like it is for me, branding is super important.
As you
So
can
like
see
the
by our
yeah.
headphones and the lights at the end.
I think it just gets me really excited because, like, I love visuals, I love graphics, I love that whole development stage. And so for me, the next step was like, oh, I'm gonna get my branding done. So I better finalize like a name for myself and, get all the colors selected and get my logo done and everything. Cause I knew once I had that stuff, I would be like, okay, let's do this. Cause now that's ready. I got the logo. Let's plaster it everywhere. Let's get this ball rolling. So I was really just waiting for that to be finalized. But I had, figured out a name. Was gonna go with Olive Bark because one, my name's Olivia. Olive, some friends call me Olive, some it's like a quick nickname because Olivia is just way too many syllables. But also I really love that it was kind of like a play on words with like olive branch and like extending an olive branch out to people and, just making it it's like a metaphor for extending an open hand and allowing people to grow with you and just be really gracious in the whole concept of it. And I liked that idea for dog training. But I wanted it to be a play on words with dogs. So I thought olive bark, because dogs bark, but you could also call a branch a bark. So that was really fun. So I settled on olive bark and got all the branding stuff done. And then from there I really just started getting things going, even though there was so much imposter syndrome. And I talked with like you a lot about this and like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just gonna do it. And like, how do you just like put yourself out there as like a dog trainer? Because again, I mean, we could talk about this like in a different episode, but like it's an unregulated industry. So
Mhm.
anybody can throw up a website and an Instagram page and call themselves a dog trainer. And there are people with actual credentials from different bodies of schooling and stuff like that. But I really just had my experience with shadowing under the trainer I shadowed under and working with you and my own dog. So I was like, could I really call myself a dog trainer? I don't know. So yeah, so and then like yeah, everything just got going and I started booking in some clients, mainly because I had built some connections with the trainer I shadowed under and her because she had closed down her business and I was making connections through clients who had just been like puppies that I'd worked with and now are a bit like older and adolescent dogs. You know, step by step, everything just started to connect because people talk and especially when you have an Instagram page that is active and your face is on it, it really helps.
I
So
know, and
yeah.
I feel like that is the part that, it's always, and I feel like I'm still the same. I just got my fancy certification as a dog trainer, but I still cannot get myself out of doing this when I say dog trainer, because, and I'm doing like
Air quotes. She's
quotation
doing
mark
air quotes,
air
yeah.
quotes, because it's like I don't know, like there's something, and I feel because the industry is also so confusing. You don't know. And there's like so many, like some people saying like, oh, that trainer is not even a trainer. And that trainer, I feel like you do come in as a newbie, kind of like trying to stay low to the ground, trying to not make too much
Mhm.
fuss. But yeah, no, I think it's, at the end of the day, you are doing the job. And I feel like the imposter syndrome, at least that's what I've had, that once you start working with dogs, and I think like that's where doing the walks has really been a game changer for me. It's because I am out there with dogs who have real life issues in a real life scenario. And then the magic of it is that I get to come back home and say, okay, that sucked. I need to try something different. And then it works for that dog. Amazing. You try that with another dog and turns out it doesn't work. So it's like, okay, I have the same problem, but now with this dog, it doesn't work. So you need to find another solution for that particular dog. And I feel like just the process of doing that every single day with different dogs just starts like banishing a little bit that imposter syndrome, which of course is going to come in. And I just heard someone saying that, the only people who don't have imposter syndrome is the imposters because like they just think they're amazing and they're doing everything fantastic and they know it all and they don't need to learn from anyone else. And the fact that we do have those hesitations and like, oh, am I good enough or am I not? I feel like that's also the fire that gets us to continue to learn, to continue to do better, to kind of like embrace the mistakes and figuring out how to do it. So now I'm recently building a better relationship with my imposter syndrome. I need to remember who I'm getting this information from, but like this person was saying that we really have to take imposter syndrome as a signal that we are doing something new, something bigger that we've done before. We're stepping into unknown territory, and then not let that stop us, but actually inspire us, because it's like, okay, cool. Like I'm getting there and I'm leaving my comfort zone, and this is what I'm supposed to be feeling, which before for me, it was just like, oh my God, this feels horrible. I am not, to the standards. So I was backing up. And that's why, I went through a period in my life where I wasn't growing or doing anything new, because that imposter syndrome would just stop me from doing the things. And so, yeah, I feel like that is a thing that we just need to like just change that reaction to it, and kind of like just leaning into the feeling and the process, because it means we're doing something.
I love that perspective. And also because, like, I feel like a lot of imposter syndrome stems from this idea of like really caring about what you do. you know, like, I don't think you would feel imposter syndrome if you felt like you already knew everything and you didn't really care about how people perceived you and, that you were just everything was gravy and everything was fine. But I think for us, it's like, I really want to make a good impression on people, and I really wanna help them, and I want to ensure that I'm giving correct information. So, yeah, that's a good perspective to have on imposter syndrome, and I feel like I'm better at it now. It's just every now and then, again, like what you said, when you start something new, you're like, "Oh,"
Mhm.
you get that feeling, and you're like, "What do I do?"
And like the easiest decision is to like, okay, no, like this is hard, this doesn't feel good, like I'm just gonna not do the thing. But yeah, no, I feel like you just have to keep going and kind of like welcome the imposter syndrome as a companion in the journey, but not letting it decide what you can or cannot do, I guess.
Totally, I love that. So if anybody's
Yeah.
feeling imposter syndrome out there, it's a good thing.
Own it.
Own it,
Own
it's
it,
part
go
of
for
you.
it. Okay, so with all of that, like how I mean, I think it's just like again, like we'll go into that of how like I don't know, I'm like listening to your story, I feel like there's so many things, so many more things that I thought that we have in common. But then at the same time, again, it's like it has been like a very, very different journey into like I don't know anything about dogs, but I want to be a dog trainer now. But how, I don't know, like if there was something that you would do different, again, thinking of this time of you not knowing anything at all about being a dog trainer and being a dog trainer, like, is there anything in that piece of your life that you feel like now looking back, say like, oh, you know what I would have done this differently? Or is it like, okay, no, like I really love the journey that I took, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer of not having any regrets and really just
Mhm,
owning up
mhm,
to all the different decisions I ultimately decided to take or make. But I don't think there's anything I would have done differently because I feel like every path that has led me here has taught me something in a way that I didn't even expect. So even if not all the experiences I had were totally amazing, like all the time, there was still something to be learned from each of those. And I think the biggest one, and I always go back to this because it's such a big part of my life, is that like, man, I wish I had just learned so much more about dogs before I got my dog so that I would have been more prepared or even more knowledgeable or educated on the types of dog behaviors that I had no idea even existed.
mhm,
I don't know, I think before I got into all this, you kind of like, oh, a dog, fun. It's going to be a fun companion. And they're just going to be like happy go lucky and just you take them everywhere and it's going to be great. But I didn't realize how much depth it would dogs actually have and how far into it I would get as well, if that makes
mhm.
sense.
Mhm, mhm. No, yeah, I think like that makes total sense. And I feel like because I feel like my question wasn't perfect one. So I'm gonna like change that and kind of like just play
Mhm.
around for here, because I feel like you have a particular experience that at least I don't have, because I don't have a dog of my own. So I feel like sometimes I get to learn. Last week I did a pet sit for a client, and this is a service I don't provide, but this is a very special client. And the yeah, like for me it was just like, man, it's a lot of work. Like having to think of this dog like the whole day. I was out doing my things, and then I was worrying about the dog, and then coming back, and then I'm used to just coming in, take a shower, la, la, la. It's like, no, I have to walk the dog before that, and then I have to do the midday, and then I have to do the meals, and all of these things that I feel I haven't had for a while. So going back into that really gave me a new perspective of, like I'm out here telling people to like enjoy your walks, but it's just like then I was doing my fourth walk of the week of the day, and then it was just like, like people really just have to come back home and do other things. So it really gave me a different perspective of the daily life with a dog, rather than just like, oh yeah, I take them out for a walk and that's my time with the dog. So of course I'm going to be 100% in that time. So anyways, I feel like you do have that experience both as someone who has their own dog and you have that experience much more close because that's what you do. And then you have the dog trainer experience that, like you've gone through that journey on its own. So I have like this is a twofold. So like on one side, if there was someone who is just about to get a dog, like the same scenario as you had, never had a dog, maybe had a childhood dog, but now it's like your own dog, what would be like the one thing that you would say, do this first, and then, like everything else will start to make more sense? Like, what is like the one piece of information that you wish, like you would recommend people, I guess, to know about? And then for the other part is like for a new trainer who is, like just like we were at some point saying, I want to be a trainer, but I don't know where to start. What would be a piece of advice that you would give that new trainer? So we have the dog owner who is thinking of getting the dog, and you have the trainer. So we'll start with the human who wants to get a dog.
I have so many things. I think I have so many things because my dog was so difficult as a puppy and still is very difficult. So, I mean, as a general, I would say educate yourself on dog body language and dog behavior. But that can be very difficult for people because not knowing the right resources to go to, or not knowing who to get the information from, or just sifting through so much information online can be really stressful and frustrating. And I know a lot of puppy parents go through this right now because I have a lot of clients who are puppy owners. And I remember myself going through this. Is just like, what do I listen to? Everybody's telling me this, do this, and the loose leash will be fixed in no time. Or do this and your dog will start jumping on you. And like none of it works and I don't understand. So
Mm-hmm.
I know sifting through information online can be super difficult. So I think an easy way through that is to research a dog trainer in your area that understands dog behavior and maybe even specializes in reactive, fearful, anxious dogs, because I think they will actually be able to help you navigate how to go about choosing a dog for yourself, whether you rescue, adopt, or buy from a breeder. Because I think so much of that foundational knowledge is not widely accessible to people. And I think
Wow.
the only way, or at least I think the easiest way to go through that is to have somebody in your corner who has seen a wide variety of dogs and understands um, dog behavior, dog communication, puppy behavior, all that stuff really well, so they can at least help you through that and pick a dog that's going to suit your lifestyle really well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because I think that's one of the biggest struggles is people just don't know how to pick a dog that suits their lifestyle. And you hear like the very classic, oh, you got a high drive dog, so of course you're going to need to take it out. Or you didn't get an apartment dog, so of course you're going to need to like exercise it like 10 times a day or whatever, right? But there's so much else to that than just having a specific breed of dog.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding, are you going to be able to support this dog if it does end up being a little bit nervous, or if it does
Mm-hmm.
end up being reactive, or if it does end up with resource guarding issues, or if you already have a dog and you're bringing a new dog home?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know
Mm-hmm.
how to manage those situations if those dogs don't get along? So I think even just talking to a professional or like working with a professional before you even get a dog, which might sound a little bit weird and strange and
Mm-hmm.
unconventional, but I feel like a lot of trainers would be up for just setting up a virtual call and doing a consultation with you regardless, because they just have so much knowledge in their head that they can share with you of what you can expect before you get a dog and how to go about picking the right dog for you.
My God, that's even like an amazing service. You should start offering
I
that.
know.
What the hell?
Okay, you guys, I'm going to start offering this service. I think the difficult part is trying to get people to buy into this idea because they're
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I don't have a dog yet. I'll just deal with it when
Mm-hmm.
I get one. But oh my God, if I could go back and do it again and not knowing all the things I didn't know, I think this would have helped me so much more. And I probably
Uh-huh,
wouldn't have ended
uh-huh.
up with Darwin, which makes me say, like, no, I was on the right path because she led me here and everything like that.
Uh-huh,
But
uh-huh.
at the time, I wanted a happy go lucky dog that I could take everywhere with me. And that is not what I got.
Mhm. And I think like even I feel like one of the lessons through all of this is that at the end of the day, we are dealing with sentient beings. And even though you may do your research because you did, and even though if at some point you start offering this to, people who are thinking, and I think there's a market because I was approached by this potential client that like way before they got their dog she was already looking for services, so there's people out there who do want that guidance. I know that for a lot of people, like just our human brain is just like, oh no, we expect the best and then we make decisions out of our emotions because we want a dog and we're gonna have it, and then once you have it it's just like, oh shit. But there's people out there who do want to have that comfort, or they just want that guidance, and I feel the fact that every trainer out there is focusing on the people who already have a dog. But I feel like something like quick and easy and something that you can just bring in and people can ask questions to, like straight to someone who is a professional, I feel like that could be a really game changer. So yeah, well, people will see when Olivia launches this and we'll announce that. But I feel like wait, I was gonna say something and now I forgot. So it was in that same line of the dog trainer idea. Damn it. Okay, well, it'll come back to me at some point, but it's a really good idea. I'm thinking that in this podcast we're gonna have a few really good ideas to start implementing, so that's extra fun. But okay, so yeah, I feel like that is good. And again, I feel like it goes against the nature of humans making emotional decisions, but it is so true at the same time that, especially when you have this overflow of information, because I just think about now that we have AI, it's a whole new can of worms because then, depending on how you ask a question, AI will respond to you, right? So, like, if you ask a question and, like sometimes I've done that between, like, kind of like advice for training. So AI knows me that I'm pretty much, like very much positive reinforcement and la la la, it'll give me an answer. But if I ask a few extra questions and then I ask the same thing, it'll give me a different opinion. So I feel like this is going to be even more challenging to people to understand that, like what ChatGPT is telling you, it may not be accurate to your situation or your whatever you have. And I feel like that's where really the power of humans and having a real human with you, walking you through it and figuring out what do you need, what are your goals, what is your lifestyle, what are you dealing with, and how you can choose better. Oh, I remember my point. My point was that even though you may have all of that back end knowledge, your dog is still a sentient being who may end up, even though you made all your research, even though you had all the right advice, you may still come up with something that you were not expecting because they are their own beings. And from like a same leader, you can have all the huge range of personalities and genes that get activated or not. So I feel like at the end of the day, we also need to acknowledge the fact that we're bringing a sentient being into our home, and it's not like buying furniture and you go to IKEA and then you get what you get, and then if you go to another fancy place, oh, you get a fancier piece of furniture. But when it comes to dogs and any other pets out there, you really don't get to decide. You have to kind of like stay open to that and kind of like embrace like the chaos that they'll bring, because at the end of the day, it will be chaos. And I feel like as long as people are going in more informed and maybe with more realistic expectations of what can happen, that is going to be a huge step forward, I guess.
100%. I agree with that entirely. Like, we forget that dogs are sentient beings with their own motivations and their own personalities and their own ways to go about life and how they see life. And I think so many of us just get into this idea that, like, oh, we bought a pet home, it's gonna be great, they're gonna be so well behaved, or they're gonna act a certain way, or you have certain expectations of the dog. And not to like fully compare it to having a child, but it's kind of like having a kid, except you've kidnapped this child from its mother. You're bringing it home into a completely different environment, and now you're expecting it to do all these things that we think dogs should do. And it's just so unrealistic as us owners to be putting these expectations on like puppies, especially, and rescues, especially, to just
Hmm.
adapt to our lifestyle and to be super obedient and to walk nicely on leash and to not jump on anybody. Like these are animals that we are bringing inside our home and we're trying to fit them into a
Hmm.
mold, and when it doesn't work, we get frustrated. So I think 100% what you said, these are sentient beings and have to give them a lot of like empathy and grace into how we're approaching raising them, because we are raising them as, as animals and as our companions. So that is such a good point. And man, I can get into a whole conversation about breeders and,
I
the
think we need
whole,
to have like several episodes on this topic.
I know, because like in my head, when I didn't know anything about anything, I was like, I'm gonna get it from a breeder. It's gonna be so great. They're just gonna come neatly packaged, this cute little puppy that I could just take home. It's not gonna have any issues and it's gonna be wonderful. And then
Hmm.
I opened
Hmm.
the present up and it was just like, blah!
Evil.
It's just
No,
chaos
and I think
reigning over me.
a lot of barks. And no, I think like that is like really, and I think like something that you mentioned earlier of like how you were doing your research, but I feel like it was that part of that expectation that because I was just writing a newsletter the other day and it's actually coming out today. So like listen, yeah, I want you to read that one. But I was thinking back of when I got my own dog, and I feel there's a part of us humans that we want that companionship and, like the best friend and this kind of like very Disney version of having an animal and just, like loyalty forever, which I mean, at some point I'll get into that, but every time I hear of like, yeah, they're the most loyal creatures and like they are all love and la la la, it's like, they like I mean I love them but it's just like I feel like they're their own being and sometimes we see it as a little appendix of us that they depend on us or they are like not their own being. They're dependent on us and everything we say should make sense for them. And I feel like that's a lot of how I thought of dogs when I got my childhood dog because I didn't saw her for who she was. I was seeing her, I would put her some water, I would feed her, and she had a little space, she had her little house, and it was just like she's all set, like that's all she needs. I didn't know she was a social being that needed connection, that needed just a guide to life and everything you find outside. And she was very smart because she figured out the way through a lot of getting lost and getting hit by a car and things like that. But then she survived. But at the same time, I know that for me, I often feel so bad because I didn't see her for who she was. And I wasn't like aware that she actually had needs and that I could be doing a lot more. So I feel like, yeah, like if we can just inspire people to just see your dog for the species and it's not a baby, it's not a, like a little teddy bear, it's really a dog and they are wonderful, but they also come with their fair share of chaos that I feel like, again, we sometimes want that beautiful relationship, but we forget that naturally that comes with the other side of, yeah, they'll do all these random things and you don't know what they're one different dog is gonna do. And I feel like you and I can share that when doing our walks, how different a walk can be with different dogs. Even if you do it in the same neighborhood, the things that are challenging for one and are not for the other, and what you are able to do with them, how much fun you can have with what, it's incredibly different for every single dog. So I feel like, yeah, I think that's a big part of what we're trying to share of like every dog is different, people.
Oh, totally. And like that's such a great benefit to the job that we have, because as a dog owner, like let's say you only have one dog and that's your only experience with dogs, that is your entire perspective of what dog ownership is, just like your relationship with that dog. But man, they change so much with just like different people, different environments. Like I always say to Ricky when I get home, I'm like, I always wonder what my dogs are like when they get home. Cause like I know they're not the same when they're out on walks with me because it's just a completely different experience. Like sometimes I just want to ask my clients and be like, can I just sit in your home for like an hour just so I can see what your dog is like outside of our walks together? Because I feel like you would get so much more of like different facets of their personality. Because I know this looking at Darwin. She's not the same dog walking out in the neighborhood than she is in the home. She's an absolute menace and psycho inside as well as outside, but in a completely different way. So yeah, I think that's just so interesting to really understand how dimensional your dog is. And they're not just like what you said, this like fluffy little teddy bear, Disney like creature that just follows you around and loves you unconditionally.
No, no, no. They have their thoughts and emotions, and I feel like that's what brought us, both of us, like so passionate about what we do. And I also often think, like, even with the pet sit that I did, seeing like my dogs on their day to day, and it was just like, oh, so this is what you do, and this is what you deal with these things, and this is, like you definitely get to see a different perspective of them. So yeah, I feel like that's, I mean, we can go on forever, I guess, with this topic. But let me just check because I don't know
Oh, I
if
don't think
I
I
had
answered your
any.
other question.
Oh, the trainer. Yeah. Okay.
What
So
was it
now we're
again?
going. So it was basically now like that was for the person who like wants a dog and doesn't know anything about dogs. So now on the other side, and I'm asking this because I feel like when you are fresh, like, like once you have like 10 years of experience, the advice that you can give someone new is going to be very different because you haven't, being a beginner for a while. So I feel like sometimes I think that about myself, like, okay, if someone would reach out to me and it's like, I want to be a trainer, what do you recommend? Like, what's one piece of advice that you would give me? And like, yeah, like I think about that a lot. So I would love to hear what would you say now that you are kind of like still fresh into the process of being like
Yeah.
a trainer, but somewhat new.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if I can give out one piece of advice. I can give out little tidbits here and there.
Give me one.
Um, yeah. Definitely go out and do whatever you can to get experience with more dogs, whether it be a daycare, grooming, work at a pet store, shadow under another trainer locally in your area, whatever you can to just increase your experience, like in person, one on one with dogs, is just going to benefit you so much. Um, do research and learn about behavior, learn about communication, learn about body language. And it doesn't have to be formal learning because there are a bunch of institutions that you could do courses from and all things like that. Laura, I think you're really good at this, and I cannot do what you do, but you're really good at learning on your own and being able to seek out information and knowledge from different people and experts and all that stuff. I'm not like that. I need a course. I need someone to keep me on track. I can't just go out and seek the information
I mean, I
myself.
got a course, but it was a scam. We'll talk
So
about that, people.
she did do it both ways, but I think she took more out of it from learning on her own because
And I
she's
just
just really
wasted my
smart.
money.
But me, I need structure. So I'm doing a dog certificate program right now through Dognostics. And I really enjoy it because it's teaching me like all sorts of different like mechanics and really formal theory, learning theory, that sort of stuff. So I think that stuff is important because like we said, this is an unregulated industry and anybody can call themselves a dog trainer, but really do the education and learn from other people, learn from resources that are, credible, which can be hard to decipher sometimes. But if you ever need help, just reach out to us. We're more than happy to help.
We are happy, or
Uh,
if you're in the New West area and are looking for to start, we can talk about you joining my walks because we need more walkers.
Yeah, so I think those two things for sure. Get in front of more dogs, do that research, and also be really open-minded to making connections with other pet professionals. Again, we've talked about this so much in the little time that we've had together already in our two episodes that we've done, but being open-minded to make really strong connections with like-minded people in the industry so that you don't feel so alone and that you have just a buddy to rely on, to talk to even build your network out a little bit more. I think that's super important, and to not think of everybody as competition because they're not. And if you do your thing really well, you don't have to worry about other people because,
Uh-huh.
they're either going to be focused on their stuff and they don't really care about you, to be quite honest. Like, I think all of us are pretty like we think in first person, or we have this like ego that like people are watching us and they're doing everything that we're doing, but like, okay, if someone decides to copy you, then they're still going to be second best because they're copying you and they couldn't think of something new, or they're just doing their own thing and you're kind of just in the peripheral. So don't be so worried about other people and really just try to make better connections with people as well.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I feel like that was the most of it. So we are all like up to date with Olivia and what got her where she's at. And I mean, I learned a lot of things myself, so I'm very excited that we're doing this. That's what I was thinking of, like, ooh, like this is going to be so cool too. Like we're gonna get to know each other a lot through all of this, which is fine. I feel like it's good for us to get into this and know all of these quirks before we have a guest coming in, because then we can, like we know everything about ourselves or a little bit more. So I feel like it's good to warm up for the future.
I know, I'm so excited to do yours. I'm gonna get to do some like research and like become an investigative journalist.
Bring back that English degree.
Yeah. Put it to use since I didn't use it anywhere else.
I mean, you got that medical job, so there we go. And I do want to look for your blog, so I might
Please
just took a
don't.
little digging.
Please don't.
I want to see Olivia Lam. Vancouver is awesome. I
Oh
love
my
that. So
God.
I actually wanted to just close with like just for our listeners to join into the conversation and the fun. And I know that a lot of people will have their own dogs, and I'm just curious to know what was one thing that they really planned, because I feel like your story is very relatable into that a lot of people have like what they think has been great research before getting their dog. And then, like, like what was something that you really planned for that then your dog came in and it was like nothing like you expect, even though you were so ready that you had everything in place. So I would love to hear what was that thing for you with your own dog, because I feel there's going to be a lot of those stories out there.
I love hearing those stories because it makes me feel not so alone in the world. Because I have a lot of things that I could, say about that. But it's always nice to hear other people, and also for other people who are listening to relate to your story as well. And I think that's the nice thing about building a community like this is you just don't feel as alone in your struggles, because there is somebody out there who's going through the same thing as you, believe it
Yeah,
or not.
exactly. They are. So we want to hear from you. And well, thank you for joining us. This was very enlightening for me, and I hope that it was for you, awesome human,
Yeah.
listening to this. And yeah, like just come back next week for the deep dive into now Laura, which I'm getting nervous. It's just like, what are you going to ask me?
I'm so excited. I really went into this blind. She didn't share any of the questions with me, and I think there was something fun about that. I was like, I'm not going to prepare at all. I'm just going to answer her questions, and whatever comes out of my head comes out of my head.
I love that. And I feel like that makes it more natural. But at the same time, that puts more pressure on me. In the beginning, I was just like, yeah. And then it was like, no, I need to answer. I need to ask stuff. So I'm glad. And we're all practicing skills of being a good interviewer. So better with us than with our guests. So that's going to be fun. So thank you
Totally.
for joining us and learning from Olivia. So we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.